you will make money. You will make money. It doesn't matter what it is. If you love it, if you believe in it, and if you're passionate about it, you'll make money. Even if you're crap at sales, even if you're rubbish at certain things as a business owner, you have no idea how to run a business, you will learn those things. So that's what I always say. And I personally think it's much more rewarding if you doing something that you love for yourself, for your family, for the people who you love.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to My First Business, the podcast. I'm your host, Naeem Pervez, and I'm a relatively new and sometimes clueless business owner, and I wanted to talk to other entrepreneurs to help guide me and inspire me and help me understand the best way to grow my own business. So I know you may be in that boat. You might want to learn about what mistakes to avoid, how to overcome common challenges, how to identify new opportunities, and that's why I created this show for you, my dear listener. So if you're thinking of going out on your own, or if you're running a new business or an old one, I don't care. I'm not an ageist. I bring on guests from all sorts of industries, and they are full of wisdom that you'll chew right up. And each episode is going to be like a conversation with a mentor that you never had. My guest today is Hannah Matthews. Hannah, school report once said she's a hardworking in class, but likes to daydream. Fast forward to now, she's working on getting some dreams to come true. Dreams such as owning and running Couture Events, which is a luxury event management company. And they've got a bit of a reputation for organizing some high-profile weddings, corporate events, and memorable social occasions across the MENA region. They've worked with hundreds of high-profile brands, BMW, New Look, Adidas, T-Fest, Parkhead, Four Seasons, Waldorf Astoria. Wow. Hannah has been in the event sector for over 10 years now, previously owning an events agency in Portugal before deciding to take her planning international. Her love for the industry started when she worked as a wedding cake designer, and the turning point came when she delivered a customer's wedding cake and found the organizer needing some help. So being the natural planner and firefighter, she stepped in to help and never looked back. When she moved to Dubai, Couture Events was already around, and Hannah immediately recognized the potential to grow and develop the brand worldwide. So like a good daydreamer does, she took over the business and is busy making it a powerhouse of a company, and I want to learn how to do it too. Hannah, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for coming on. We're going to get into the business stuff in a bit. Okay. There's something I wanted to get out of the way first.
Okay.
A little birdie once told me, so I want to make sure it's true.
Uh-oh.
Getting your heart rate up right at the start. So is it true? I have to read this out because this sequence of words in a sentence I've never said before. So is it true that you were once rescued by 2 fire engines and 3 police cars when your car was sliding backwards down a mountain in the snow?
It's true. It's true. I know.
What?
I know. And you know what? The worst part of it is I was about 17 or 18. So I just passed my driving test. And my mum was having this really fancy dinner party at her house. Yeah. And I called her and I was crying hysterical because I thought I was about to die and I didn't know what to do. And I'm like, help me. And she's like, everyone at the dinner party just got in the car. The food stayed in the oven. Like they came back, it was black. Like it was so bad. Yeah.
I mean, what was that call like? How did you find the words to tell your mom what was going on?
Well, I didn't. I was like, like I couldn't speak,
Were you alone in the car?
Yeah, I think, I was going to my friend's house, and do you know what? I blacked out so much at that point. I think that I was nearly at her house. I lived in the countryside, right? And, no, I just picked her up. Because we were driving up the hill and it was really snowy. Like there was so much snow and I'm in my little Peugeot 106, and we're in the car and we go up the hill and then all of a sudden we get to a certain point and we hit ice and I start coming back, but then on the side it's literally a mountain and then there's no barriers because you're in the countryside, right? And the car, and I don't know how to steer a car in because they say you're meant to go into the wherever you're sliding, right? So, but then you don't want to do that because your brain's like, don't do that because you're going to go off. So then my friend, luckily, there was this massive sand bucket that I never, you pass them in the countryside all the time, right? And you never really think, why is there sand in there? And she was younger than me. I think she was about 15. And she ran up and she's just grabbing the salt and putting it in her jumper and running it and putting it on my wheels to like melt the ice underneath the wheels. So by the time, the ambulance arrived, there's like firefighters there, the police are there, and this one guy just casually, I would died. He casually got in the car and just slid my car down the mountain. Just chilled
with one hand.
With one hand, I swear. It sounds like I was like, oh my goodness, this is so embarrassing, But I mean, at the time, I thought I was going to die. So, and they were really quick, I've got to say. So, yeah, That's the story. I can't believe you've opened with that.
Have to start with the most traumatic event of your life, don't I?
Horrific.
But there's a reason I chose that, because there's firefighters involved, and getting into the business stuff. I want to talk to you about firefighting.
Okay.
So here's the deal. I just came back from a wedding in Bali. And in my culture, weddings are already a big deal. On top of that, it was an interfaith marriage, so double the events of everything in a different country with a bunch of different people. So, and I've been to over 50 weddings in my life. And as a nosy and very observant guest, I can't stop thinking about all the things that can go wrong in an event like that.
Go on.
And planning and visioning is all great, but in the moment when something happens, I want to draw some parallels to firefighting in events, as you have to be in the moment, and see what I can use in my own business or people that are listening as well. What have you learned about putting out fires when they arise? I'm not talking about the ones that you can kind of prepare for. There are some that are predictable. There's some that you had.
These ones are never,
Yeah. So what have you learned? How do you recognize them early enough? What's your usual plan of action? If you could either generalize or tell me a story of, what's your firefighting strategy?
The funny thing is in events, I've never in 10 years ever had an event where there hasn't been something that I've had to put out, ever. So I think that thinking on your feet and thinking fast and finding the solution without causing any disturbance is the most important thing, because ultimately I'm hired to make sure the day goes smoothly, and there's always something. So I had a wedding last night, right? This is just yesterday. It was a couple of hours ago, and the ceremony happened. It was a British couple, and I work with couples from all over the world, so different cultures all the time, but this particular wedding was a British couple. And everything was really great. They're a great couple. They're really easy. And I was driving to the wedding and I was going, I don't know what's going to go wrong today, because they're great. The wedding's planned. We set up the night before, super easy. We were lucky. We had a bit of extra time. What could possibly go wrong? So we go to the ceremony starts. The bride's a bit late, but that's normal. And then the celebrant's there, and I noticed that she starts sweating quite a lot, but we're outside and it's really hot, right? And I've been out there since 8 a.m. The team's been out there, we've been setting up, but at this point it's 4 p.m. So, the sun's coming down. She's a bit hot, but she's nice, the celebrant, she's chilled. Anyway, ceremony was beautiful. The words were amazing. I've got to set the scene because everything was perfect, right? And I'm sat there and I'm like, this is going to be the easiest event of my life. And then, anyway, I go down then because the dining area was separate to the ceremony area. And I go down and the celebrant came down to see the decor because it was 2 separate locations. Wow, this is beautiful. Like, I love it. We'd never worked together before, her and I. And she sat on the steps and she's like, oh, I'm really hot. I'm just a bit hot. I'm just going to calm down, like chill out here. So I'm there with my team and we're just fixing a couple of little things before the guests come down. And I look and I'm like, she's fallen asleep on the step. No. She passed out. She hit her head on the step and passed out. And there's no one in the area at the time because all the staff for the hotel are up with the guests, right? There's a few people. So I'm like, holy, like, what do I do? Like, what, so literally, like, I'm like, grab a fan. To me, my team are like fanning her. I'm calling like security, like, get me somebody to come and help. Like, I need first aid immediately because there's not much you can do. Yeah. And then she threw up. So like, I'm with one of my team who's like actually really smart when it comes to like first aid, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, I think she's having a heart attack because she's been sick. And I'm like, are you joking? You know, I mean, luckily, I'm laughing. It wasn't that. She just overheated, thankfully.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in answer to your question, after telling sort of a bit of a story, it is just about thinking fast and getting a solution, getting the right people involved as well. And I mean, that one's a bit traumatic. I've had other ones which were just, you know, ridiculous. Like one time, this was years ago, and all of the first course got dropped on the floor as it came out of the oven. I mean, you know, like there's just, there's always something. And you don't want to alert the families or the bride and groom, because ultimately they're enjoying themselves. So your job is to make sure that you take on the stress, you take on the solution, you take on, you know, so yeah.
So there's two parts to it. You have to fix what's wrong, and you have to manage the people that are or whose event it is.
For sure.
Do you which one do you do first? Do you inform them of something going wrong and then you're working on it and you have a plan, or do you kind of figure it out as you go?
I have to first of all do the planned solution to go with them with a solution, because ultimately they don't want to make the decision on the day. They're enjoying themselves. They've maybe had a drink if it's a certain culture. You know, at that point you have to go with them. So for example, with the food one, which was long time ago, it was in Portugal and there was 5 courses. So I switched a course. I made the decision and I switched it without asking them. And I went to them because they're on the head table, right? So there's always people looking at them, you know. So
especially
I went
if you're going next to them.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Something's up.
So I just went in and was like, look, this has happened. I'm switching the courses. The fish is going to come first. That's going to come afterwards. They were like, okay, cool, done. If I'd gone to them and been like, right, big issue, all the meat's on the floor, they would have been like, I think it was the fish actually, and we swapped the fish and the meat. But anyway, they would have freaked out.
You almost have to hold back the information or the exact severity of the situation, right?
Yeah.
Because it kind of muddies their mind with, especially if they're not in good control of their emotions. So they're relying on you to have good control. Do you end up having to, I wouldn't say argue, but present your case and then kind of not allow them, but allow their solutions to rise above yours, even though you think you might be the level-headed one? Is that an easy conversation, or do you kind of just take charge and I've got this, I'm doing this, that's what's going to happen?
It's a good question. And to be honest, I think that by the time the event day comes, they've spent so much time with me and they trust the decisions that I make. So ultimately, if I go to them with a solution, they just trust that solution is the right one for them. So I would always, I've never had someone disagree with me and be like, I don't think that's the right decision ever. And I mean, and we're talking like I've done hundreds of events over the space of 10 years. And there is always something that goes wrong. So all those times it's going with a solution. Obviously, I've got better at it. You know, like learning and developing is something that we constantly do. And at every event, it's always something new. Those hundreds of times, it's always been something different. So you grow and you learn to, I think, problem solve much better than what I did in the beginning.
I think something you mentioned in there is actually key. Like you built that trust with them beforehand, so that even if you tell them beforehand, look, shit's going to go south at some point, but I'll be here. And we've tried to use this in our business as well. So when we do, let's say, advertising campaigns that start flopping or something terrible happens on the internet that's not good for the brand, how we react and keep the client's emotions in place, knowing that we don't even have a planned solution yet. Like you talked about having a planned solution yet. The initial part of like, shit's gone south, trust me though, I'm on it. And that's what we've been trying to embody. So Alina looks after most of the account management. She's a client-facing person. So she's got that trust built in. But over time, we are trying to transition her away from that, working in the business to working on the business, which means getting other people to talk to clients. And that skill of developing that trust, being like, don't worry, I'm here, I'll figure something out, leave this with me. And that phrase, actually, leave it with me, is my favorite phrase to hear from a service provider of mine. When someone says, like I was buying a property recently and my broker ran into some issues, all he said, leave it with me. That sounds so good to my ears, just to be able to say that. Good. Okay. I think that build trust thing is really important, because that can happen over so many interactions, right? And that's something that Lena and I will discuss. How can we do that earlier as well? Now I want to talk about vision development and planning. again, trying to draw parallels between business planning, event planning, life planning, all of that kind of stuff. Kind of has a similar theme going around it. So when a client comes to you with an idea for an event, let's skip the weddings, maybe something else. Do you have a process, like a fixed process of going through that visioning of taking what they've told you, understanding it, clarifying what they meant, and then communicating it back to them? Like, is this what I'm hearing? Is this what you want to do? How does that process look like, if you have one, if you can lay out the different steps that you have of turning a vision into something that you understand, a client's vision into something that you understand?
It's a good question. With any client, it whether it's corporate, social, wedding, doesn't matter. For me, it always starts with what I call, and I learned this years ago, it's the most important sales tool that I've ever been taught, which is, they call it the need find, right? So you're finding the need find. So you find someone's need, right? So yes, somebody's putting on an event, and yes, they've got an idea of what it wants to look like, but why are they doing that event? Why? What's the purpose? What do they want to achieve? With a wedding, for example, what is the most important thing for them? How do they want to feel on the day? How do they want their guests to feel on the day? If it's a corporate, why are they doing that event? Are they doing it to reward staff? What's the purpose? Because when people walk into that room, no matter what event it is, we have to answer that. That need has to be created, right? So sometimes especially, in weddings, corporates, mainly weddings actually, but if an event is being created, they haven't thought of those questions. They just thought, we're getting married. We want it to look nice. Okay, but and everybody has a different thing that they want to do, right? So some people will say, I want people to walk in and I want them to be like, oh my goodness, like, what is this? There's other people that are like, actually, I don't want people to walk in and see that we've spent loads of money, but I want it to look really nice. And we just want, we're really suffered with COVID. We just want everybody to enjoy themselves. So how does that look? That doesn't necessarily translate into design. It translates into entertainment, right? So it's about covering the entire process. So when a client comes, we do what I would call the need find. I'd find out what it is that they're actually looking to achieve. What is it that they want people to feel when they walk in? And then we develop that into what that looks like on paper. So paper is then created from, we create kind of like a mood board, which includes all elements from what a venue would look like, from the entrance through to the ceremony, or to a cocktail if it's maybe a corporate, through to a dinner. How does that look like? We obviously start looking at venues for them that fit, if they haven't found one already, if it fits what they're looking to achieve. Because if they want that breathtaking moment, Dubai has venues like that, where I don't have to do anything at that point. They walk in and the venue's there, and then it's all translated onto paper. And then we basically take that back to them and I present to them. So I show them, right, this is what I've heard. This is how I've translated it onto paper. What's your feedback? Tell me. And then generally, I'd like to think I nearly always hit the nail on the head. I would like to think that. But yeah, there's always feedback. Yeah, we love that. Maybe we could develop this a bit more. And then they get fully involved in the process. And then from that, then pretty much they feel that I've understood them. And it builds a little bit more trust, like we talked about earlier. And then hopefully at that point, just go into the close, get the deal, and then start working on it, which is kind of the process.
Because it's so intangible when they come to you with words like, I want it wow. And
yeah, like, what is wow?
What is wow?
Yeah, tell me what wow looks like to you. Because to one person, wow is something completely different to another one.
Yeah.
And then you have the really, the tough chat about budgets, because, not everybody has a budget to create a certain wow. So it's. Yeah,
I remember when we were developing tech products, we used to have clients come in with, app ideas. And just to get them to define what they want was a 5-day exercise. We'd bring them in for 6 hours a day for 5 days straight, just to understand what they're trying to do.
Wow.
Because their initial brief to us, if they're talking to us, was like, oh, I wanted to have a button here and it should do that and it should link to that database and there needs to be a chatbot. I'm like, that's very clear. Come back tomorrow, bring your team, 6 hours. We're getting to the bottom of this. And yeah, the whole why question, we used to do this thing called the 5 whys.
Okay.
So if the client says they want XYZ, and we'd put that as a post-it up on the wall, and then I'd ask, why do you want that? and they say, we want that because of XYZ, because ABC. Why do you want ABC?
Yeah.
Oh, I want that because of DEF. Why DEF?
Yeah.
And you do 5 and you figure out that they actually don't want that XYZ that they want in the first place. So like, that's a useless goal to set. But I'm wondering, do you do the same thing for your business as well? So when you're planning and visioning for your business, does any of this carry over? And I'm asking because it's a struggle for us. We're really great at marketing for our clients, poor at marketing ourselves. If you ask me to run, or Alina and I to run our own campaigns, we'd like, we're not at the same level, or we don't use the same processes that we use for our clients. But when you sit and you're visioning, either on a mood board or just lying down in bed or with a glass of wine, how are you visioning for your business? Are there things that you're porting over from your client experience, or how do you go about it?
For sure, I have a vision, but just like you, I think that
Does it look like this?
Basically. Look, I think that I'm very seasonal, right? So my events in the UAE generally start from September, and they end around May. So in the summer, I'm exhausted. And that's the time all year I'm like, in the summer, I'm going to do this and I'm going to work on myself and I'm going to work on the business. And then it gets to summer and I'm like, I need to sleep, So I would definitely not as good at planning the business as I am at planning people's events. That is 100% for sure, if I'm being honest. Yeah. It's definitely something that I need to do, but I'm getting to the point where I think there's this is it like the 80-20 rule or the 60-40 rule,
80-20,
right?
20, yeah.
Right, it's 80-20. And I read this book once. I don't know if you read the book, The Success Principles by Jack Canfield.
No, I haven't.
Everybody, you have to read it. It changed my life. You have to read it.
Say the title again.
The Success Principles.
Success Principles.
Jack Canfield. Yeah.
Canfield. Okay. And
it changed my life. And there was one that every chapter teaches you something new, right? And this was about this 80-20 rule. And I read it and I was like, this makes so much sense. Because there's things that I don't enjoy doing, right? I don't enjoy organizing my personal life at all, because I spend my whole life organizing everybody else's lives. So it's like, find someone that can organize your life. Mm-hmm. And they love to do that. So they're doing what they love, and they're doing something that you don't love. So they're happy, you're happy, everybody's happy. And I'm like, that is the most simple principle I've ever heard. It makes so much sense. And I started to really do that. Like, I hate washing and ironing. So like coming to Dubai, because I read this book when I was living in Portugal. Yeah. And I came to Dubai and I was like, oh, it's actually normal that you can have like a nanny or a maid, and that's amazing. And now she's part of my family and I couldn't live my life without her. She organizes my life. Mm. So, I'm definitely guilty of it. I'd like to think I'm improving, but it's improving all the time, right? And that's something that I definitely have to do.
Well, as long as you keep doing it for your clients, it'll all work out.
Yeah, exactly.
We're actually planning. So tomorrow, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. I was telling you before we started rolling that we do our weekly board meetings every Wednesday. I've set this one-off kind of meeting, 8 to 10, because Alina and I haven't done our visioning in a long, long time. It's been a year and a half at least, and we're kind of lacking this North Star. So we don't know what we're building towards, or it's fuzzy. We kind of know it, and if you ask me, I can talk about it for 3 hours, but is it focusing every energy molecule in my body towards it right now? No. And same for her. We've been in kind of turbulent waters. This summer has just been like that for a lot of businesses, right? Kind of a rebirth, regeneration kind of phase. So we're going to try something out tomorrow. I'm going to put some Post-its up on a wall.
Yep.
And ask why 5 times.
Yeah, it works.
Maybe even create a mood board. That just gives me an idea. That's something that we can do tomorrow morning. Okay. You mentioned Portugal in there as well. So I wanted to ask you, was that your first ever business? Did you partake in business as a young one back home as well in the countryside? Or
So when I was in the UK, I was a field sales rep. And I hope no one hears this. In fact, I told my manager when I left. So years ago, I went to university. I absolutely hated it. I'll give you a long story, very brief. I absolutely hated it. I did a year in business management, and I was like, I hate it. I in school, I was always the number one pupil. in university, I was one of 300 and it didn't matter. Like I was a nobody, right? And I hated that, which sounds ridiculous. So I was like, well, I can't, I'm not top of the class. I can't stay. And that's genuinely why I left.
I quit.
I quit because I'm just in a massive pool of people.
It's either me or these 255 people.
Right, right.
Quit.
It was so ridiculous. And my dad sat me down one day and he was like, Hannah, you can't quit. You know, you can't be a quitter. And I was like, yeah, but I'm just not loving it. I want to just, what's the point of me learning about business in a room full of people? Why can't I just go in and throw myself into the deep end? Mm-hmm. And he's like, okay, what do you want to do? I was like, I have no idea. So then I was like, I just want to travel and find myself. Because at 18, who really knows himself at 18, right? So when my mum was like, well, we're not giving you any money. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll become an air hostess and I'll just travel and get paid for it. And they were like, all right. So I joined Virgin Atlantic. So I did it for a year. And then at 19, I was like, right, I know what I want to do. I've worked out, I'm really good with people because you're on the plane, right? But I'm really good at sales. I love it. I love convince people to buy whatever. So anyway, I came out of Virgin Atlantic. I might have told a few porcupines on my CV. quite a lot of porcupines. Anyway, so I landed this amazing field sales role, right? So I was 19. I had this company car, this company mobile. All my friends were still in uni, and in like 2 years, I became top of the company. There was like, I'm sure I remember the number. It was like 576 or something like that because I was at the top, yeah. And I became like the top seller in the whole of the UK, and I absolutely loved it. I loved selling, but I hated. I hated advertising because that's what I was selling. But I love the selling part. I've completely sidelined. I have no idea what your question was.
Your first ever business.
Oh yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah. So then I met a guy, and we got married, and then he was a professional rugby player. And so at this point now, I'm smashing life, right? I'm earning so much money at 19, 20. I have no idea what to do with it because it was a commission. It was a really well-paid role, but then it was a really well-paid commission role. So I was I was doubling my salary, and I was only 21. Anyway, so I met this guy, and he was like, oh, I've got this opportunity to go move to Spain. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to leave my whole life. Like, what am I going to do? And anyway, the deal fell through. And I was devastated because I didn't know at this point if I wanted to go. And I was so devastated. And I was like, actually, I want to go. It made me realize that I wanted to go. So then him and I sat down one night and we literally emailed every single rugby club in the whole of Europe. Every single one. I made him do a video. I was like, do this, do this, do this. Anyway, he got a couple of offers. And at the time, we actually went to Italy first. So Italy was his first offer. And we went there for a year, and that's where I started doing cakes, right? It was more birthday cakes because I was like, how am I going to make any money? You know, like, yeah, I'm a hustler. No one spoke English. So then I'm like, that year I was like, I have to think outside the box now to make money because I'm not going to be able to do the job that I've just done and had a huge amount of success with and do it in this country. Then his second offer came to Portugal, and I was like, Portugal for rugby, like why? But they paid for us to go over there, and it was such a family-orientated place. We just got married, wanted to have children. And I was like, I love it. Like, this is the place I want to be. But their English was also really good. So anyway, started up the cakes again. And very, very early on, it must have been within 1-2 months of being there, I met this wedding planner. And she was the one that commissioned the cake that changed my life. So that's how I got to Portugal. And then created this wedding cake company, which it was all right. I mean, the cakes were amazing, but I still had no direction at all. I had no idea what I was just trying to hustle and try and make my own money, and trying to make something.
Were you more of a baker than just a business owner?
Probably, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I had no idea how to really promote it or whatever. I mean, I emailed all of the wedding planners, which is how I got in contact with her, and kind of did like the thing that I was doing when I was in my sales role, just where
outreach.
Just reaching out to people. That's how that's how I was hustling in that job. And then I turned up to the wedding day, and it was torrential rain. this poor girl, she was getting married in this like family house, which was incredible. And they had this huge garden outside, but the house was actually quite small. And they had like, I think it was about 150 guests. So they had no plan B. And when I say torrential rain, it's like that movie where the girl goes out and she gets kissed by the guy in the rain. Like it was that torrential. And I was like, and literally I went into this mode that I never knew I had, which was like, let's solve this problem.
Firefighting.
Yeah, exactly. Straight back to firefighting. And yeah, long story short, the cake just waited, and I was there like giving solution. And I realized that I had a lot of natural empathy. I managed to calm everyone down because they were all crying, like the nan's crying, the mum's crying, the bride's crying, like everyone's crying. Yeah. Then the groom's trying to calm them down and he's making it worse. So I realized that I had a lot of skills that I never knew I had on that day. And then I went back and I was like, I've just realized what I want to do for the rest of my life. And that's how I came into the industry, which happened in Portugal.
That's so interesting. So that sales background that you have, I think that's such a common trend that I'm seeing. So, or maybe I'm just looking at a mirror. I had a sales background too, straight out of university. I did manage to finish.
Well done. Didn't
quit. But the first job that I ever get, and nobody wants a sales job. It's just the fastest thing to get when you are.
True.
Because my visa was about to expire and I was in Canada on a visa, and I was like, okay, I need any job. Oh, I got 40 cold calls a day. Yeah, I'll do it.
I'll do it.
I'm an introvert. Sure, that's fine. 40 cold calls a day. Yeah, I've been dreaming about this forever. And I was the youngest hire that they ever had. Yeah. And and 6 months into it, I was really surprising myself. It's like, it's just about a process. Just keep reaching out and asking people if they would do business with you, and that's it. That's the formula. There's nothing else.
There's nothing else.
You can read 10,000 books about it, but it's about the activity more than anything else. And that kind of attitude also plays into when you're starting to launch your own business, because you understand downsides more than maybe other careers teach you. Because the good side of it is you can make a ton of commission, double your salary, very young. And the flip side of it is you're out of a job very quickly.
True.
You don't hit your numbers. Like, sales is ruthless.
It's ruthless.
So you've got the numbers up on the wall. Everyone's watching. It's a leaderboard.
Go and ring the bell when you make a sale. And if you don't ring the bell, everyone's like, they haven't rung the bell for a while.
Yeah, you're not at the bottom for a few years. You're at the bottom for 6 months and then you're out.
And then you're out.
There's no, so you have to kind of manage your day to day with that constant anxiety and stress, but be hopeful and motivated to do the work. And that's what I think a lot of business is, right? Like in business, when you're in business now, tell me if this is true, it's either all or nothing, right?
100%.
There's no coasting. There's no ability to coast. Like, that part of our body is gone, the one that lets you coast, because you're either going for it all or you're just worrying about how everything is going to go away very, very soon.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you two things based on that. When was the first time in your wedding planning businesses, once you started those, that you felt like you were onto something good? One was at the inception where you figured out, okay, are these tears or is this the rain? I can't tell. Oh, wait, you're all crying. But was there another client along the way? Was there another thing that happened after that when you're like, you know what? I didn't know this. I thought I knew I was going to be a wedding planner for a long time, but I know I'm onto something good. When did that happen for you?
Oh, this is such a sad story, actually. But so I was in Portugal. I was 6 months pregnant, and years ago, I used to work in a restaurant, and I was a waitress. I started working when I was 14. I was always going to be I was a hustler from day dot, and I was a waitress. I was a bit older though. I was probably about 16, 17. And I worked in this really cute pub in the UK. And there was a husband and wife that were just so gorgeous looking. And she worked behind the bar and he was the singer on the Saturday night. And they were such good people. They had this daughter. She was so cute, like so beautiful. And anyway, she got pregnant. She gave birth to her son. There was complications during the birth and he came out disabled. So they'd had a really tough life, but you'd never know it when you look at them. They were always smiling, always everything. Anyway, I wouldn't say we were close, but we spent a lot of time together because we worked together. Anyway, like fast forward, I moved to Portugal, don't speak to them anymore, it's just, but we were connected on social media, which is kind of the beauty of social media. And then, so this is years later, like years and years later. I think I was pregnant when I was 26, 27, right? So, and I was 17, so 10 years later. And I always followed them because they did a lot of fundraising for their son, because he was very disabled. And he posted saying that he'd been diagnosed with a brain tumor, which I'd known, like he'd posted about it a little bit, but there was this one day where he posted it and said, I've got a brain tumor and it's very serious and I've got 3 months to live. And I was like, he was a couple of years older than me, right? And I'm like, oh my goodness me, like that could be anyone. That could be my sister who's a bit older than me. It could be my mum. It could be my dad. And it just hit me. And probably I was a bit emotional because I was 6 months pregnant as well. And I went to bed that night and I was like, I do something that could give them this amazing day that they could live with for the rest of their life. So I reached out to her and we hadn't spoken for a long time. So I was like, do I do it? Do I not do it? Am I a psychopath? So I messaged her and I was like, look, I've seen the news. I don't even know what to say to you, but look, I'm a wedding planner. If you ever wanted to do like a vow renewal or you wanted to do something, I want to do that for you. I would love to do that for you. And I never thought she would message me back. And I hadn't really thought about what I'd sent, right? I was just like, I just wanted to help. So the next day she's like, look, no, she messaged me back straight away and she was like, he's actually really sick. He's posting, but he's really sick. Let me speak to him tonight and I'll come back to you tomorrow. I was like, okay, amazing. And I thought they would say no. Bearing in mind, I'm in Portugal, I'm 6 months pregnant. Yeah. Anyway, the next day she was like, green light, we're going to do it. What's the plan? And I'm like, I have no idea what the plan is, right? So literally I'm like, what do I do now? Because I've never planned a wedding in the UK. I've only ever done them in Portugal at this point, right? So I'm like, what do I do? So at the time, Facebook was bigger than Instagram. So I made a post on my company's Facebook page. And do you know what? What happened over the next 24 hours was insane. So literally I made this post, which basically had a picture of them as a family, obviously saying what the news was. We've decided to help them do a vow renewal. I'm looking for any vendors that are willing to contribute or get involved. It got shared. Probably I had like about 700 like followers. I don't even know what they're called on Facebook anymore. Yeah. It was such a tiny account.
Likers.
Yeah, exactly. It got shared about 1,500 times. I'd set up a GoFundMe page, which you can do in the UK. And I thought that I would need about £20,000 to like to pay for the wedding, right? So I thought I got everybody on Facebook to try, and the idea was to get them to donate. But then I was getting messages like, oh, I'll give a cake for free. Oh, I'll do this, I'll do that. And literally in 24 hours, the whole wedding was planned for free. The only thing that I paid for was the cost price of the venue and food, which was like a big cost to them, and drink. And everything else was for free. And it was planned in 24 hours. So 12 days later, I fly back to the UK and we go and deliver this honestly, I could sit here and just cry about that day. It was the most magical moment of my life. Probably one of the saddest days of theirs, but yet most magical. And I have this memory, and I sat there and I told myself, Hannah, remember this moment for the rest of your life, because that room was full of so much love and so much gratitude and so much that I can't even describe it. Like, we flew in this band that had played at their wedding years and years before from Ireland. Like, they paid for their flights. They just wanted to be there. Like, everybody. I had to hire security because ITV wanted to feature it. And obviously as beautiful as the story is, it was obviously a tragedy, right? So they wanted privacy. So I had to hire security so that paparazzi couldn't get in. It turned into something much bigger than anybody thought it was going to be. And it was just the most magical night of my life. And there's no wedding. Everyone asks me what my favorite wedding was, and it will always be that one, because sadly 3 months later he did pass away. And every single year that they celebrate his birthday or his anniversary of his passing, the photos that they use are the photos of that day. And I look at them and I'm like, wow, look what we did, And it wasn't just me, it was everyone else that was involved. But that was the day that I'm like, this is my destiny.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm actually speechless. I'm actually not even going to respond to the story because I'm going to ruin the magic. Yeah, I have no response other than wow. Yeah,
it was honestly, and even now, like, I live that, and this was years ago, and I could never place any amount of experience on that. I could never go back to that moment ever. But it has made me want to set up a foundation, and eventually I would love to do that, because the reward of giving back is just so magical. What you can receive from that as an owner of a business, or just as a person, is just there's no, you can't put a price on it.
Absolutely. Again, just wow. I do want to explore the flip side though, because a lot of people that have been on the show have also been through this. So we talked about knowing when you're onto something good and something you want to do for the rest of your life. Alina and I especially, and some of the guests that have been here, we sometimes get into such a despair that we just want to burn everything to the ground. Everything that we built, just like walking away from it.
Let's just go.
Don't want anything to do with you. Nice to know you. It was fun while it lasted. I'm moving on. And I can't have another day of this. Do you ever get there?
Like, I don't even need to think about it. It's so funny. So we just recently did a fam trip. So it's a familiarization trip in Abu Dhabi. Okay. So it's all the best wedding planners from sort of all over the Middle East. We're invited in, the hotel's hostess and whatever. And we went there, and it's so funny. We're all sat on the coach and we're all like, why do we do this? Like, why do we do this job? It's because one person's got a bride and this messaging, and one person's trying to juggle lots of things, and we're just all sat there and we're like, why do we do this? But then we sit there and we're like, but then we do it because of this, this, and this. But I think everybody, I don't even think it's our industry as such. I think it's anything. You can just sometimes just burn out, and you have to take time for yourself, and you have to keep yourself a little bit sane, because it's so easy as a business owner to get sucked in, and then you've achieved one thing, but then you've already set yourself a goal to achieve the next thing, and you don't give yourself time to just appreciate where you are, what you've achieved, and where you've reached. And 100%, I've got to the point where I'm like, I take a sit back now, and I'm like, wow, look at this, and there are definitely times though that I do want to run away and be like, I'm never doing this again.
But how do you get out of that funk? Is it just an automatic passing of that phase that comes through, like, I want to walk away from this, or is there something you deliberately do to kind of bring yourself back into, come on, get up, you got to get to work?
Do you know what? I don't think there's one particular thing I do. I think that my days are so different, right? I mean, this is the joyful thing about what I do and the people that I work with. So I don't just work weddings. I don't just work corporates. And then I don't just work with British people or Indian people or Arabs. Like, I work with all different cultures. So every day is completely different. So for me, I always find that there's always something in the day that will pull me out of it anyway. As long as I get up and I work, something happens that is just, I work in a really special industry. It is. I think it's easy to get out of it as well.
I think what I've noticed, and tell me if this is true, if you spend too much time thinking versus doing, you can get into those funks a lot more, 100%. And then you won't be able to get out. You can't think your way out of a funk. You gotta do your way out of a funk.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Definitely.
You mentioned something in there as well about hitting a goal and then already planning for the next one. Do you take moments to celebrate any sort of milestones for yourself, or are you like the rest of me and Alina, where we did this big thing, great, what's next? Like, completely, we don't know how to, go out for a nice dinner or treat ourselves to a vacation.
You should do that.
We only do that when we get to a burnout stage. We don't do that when we're like high energy and we've had a recent win. We use that energy to give ourselves a new target of something that we need to achieve in the next 6 months. But we're trying to get better. Like, how do you do that for yourself? Do you celebrate occasionally? Do you make it a big deal about accomplishing something? Like, if you pulled off a nice event, or if you had a nice quarter, for example, is there habits that you have in place that you kind of intuitively do over the years?
I think that I learned a really valuable lesson about 2 years ago. So, as I mentioned before, I was in Portugal because I was married. I would definitely say that I made a lot of mistakes and I didn't celebrate my victories enough, and I put myself into burnout stage probably too soon. And it was to the detriment of my marriage, unfortunately. And I learned a very valuable lesson. And I think that moving forward, unfortunately, you have to go through really sad times and really challenging times to come through and actually see yourself in a very different way. And for me, I really, really learned that I actually celebrating the victories, even if they're small, are super, super important. And I actually find that minimizes the burnout stages as well, because actually you celebrate something that's been very stressful. You get to a point you're like, wow, look what we did. That was amazing. You celebrate it so that you actually feel like you've given yourself a good pat on the back, which then prevents this, right, I need to keep going. Does that make sense? Like I can't articulate it very well, but for me, I really learned a valuable lesson.
What's the last celebration you do? I'm looking for examples, so I'm just going to copy yours.
You're going to copy mine.
Yeah. What did you do last?
I feel like this is a lot of pressure now. For me, it doesn't have to be something massive. For me, it's more, going out with my partner or going out with my girlfriends or, just having,
Could it be a massage?
Oh, I do frequent massages now.
Today.
Frequent. Yeah. I have I buy them in bulk.
Yeah. Same. I buy 5 at a time, 10
but
hours
I
at
never
a time.
Did that. Yeah. Years ago, I never ever did that. I never had someone who would just come and relax me. And it's actually not an expensive thing to really enjoy.
Yeah, compared to what you can feel afterwards.
100%.
It's an investment in your business.
It is an investment. I do believe that.
Yeah.
But no, I did for my birthday last year, which is coming up now. I did let myself have a little bit of a party, which was only in my garden, but I hired a singer, and that was it was so nice. Got all my really, really important people in, and that was so nice.
Oh, that sounds like something I would like to do.
It was so good, like lounge music in the garden, and my neighbors even sat on their balcony and they just watched the garden. Yeah, because it was such a nice atmosphere.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it was good.
That's a very good one. So I'm here copying all your ideas. I wanted to ask you, who do you call at 2 a.m. the most for business advice?
I mean, do we need business advice at 2 a.m.? I would say that if I have to make an emergency call at 2 a.m., and I have in the past, it was mother related. So your baby's crying and you're like, I do not know what to do. I think that's more likely the call that I would have made, which was always to my mum.
Yeah. But just in general, what's your network of mentors? Who are you kind of looking up to and borrowing wisdom from, like I am from you? What does that kind of circle look like for you, and what do you take from it?
You know what? I have to say that since I moved to Dubai, my circle is so inspirational. It's quite unbelievable. I'm really shocked about how many people I'm surrounded by that are just bosses. They're killing it. It's amazing. And I think that the lovely thing about Dubai, and I always say this because people have 2 versions of Dubai. They have 2 opinions, right? And I'm like, the reason why I love being here is because everybody wants to be here. If they don't want to be here, they're not here, right? Because you have to be here and you have to hustle. It doesn't matter what you do, right? And I really, really feel like because of that, when somebody then has a business, and I am friends with a lot of business owners, but I'm also friends with a lot of people who work for companies, and even so, they're still killing it. Like I've got an MD, one of my really, really good friends, MD of a company. They've just opened up a new office. She's absolutely smashing life. But then, I've got 2 other friends that are complete entrepreneurs. I've got another best friend who I'm in business with, and we're about to have, which is completely unrelated to couture events, and that's about to take off for something else. So it's just, I'm surrounded by people that are just amazing. But then I have met a really incredible partner, and he sees things that I never see. So I can sit down with him, and he has a mind that I think is worth millions. Could
you give an example of a recent epiphany that he's had or you've had by chatting with him?
So so I have another company which is called Lock Stop Me, which was a passion project that my best friend and I did in COVID because we're both in the events industry. She's not a planner, but same industry. So we were the first ones to be shut down, and I knew we'd be the last ones to come back because obviously a gathering of 200 people is not COVID friendly. So I was like, right, being a hustler, what am I going to do? And it wasn't even about money. I was lucky because our season, like I say, our summer season is the season that is dead. So when things closed down in March, I was already nearly at the end of the season anyway. Then I'd have the summer off, which I generally don't work very hard, or at least I'm not doing events. We're kind of planning. and then you come back in the winter, and then we were open in December. So we missed maybe 2 months either side, but we were really lucky. So it wasn't about money. It was just more about like engaging my brain and doing something that was like sitting at home doing nothing for months. I would have like died. So we came up with this idea, and I was like, look, people are going to be really careful with money when we come out of COVID, right? They're going to be really careful. Yet we're in a place where women are constantly having their hair and their nails done, their makeup, like they want to look good. And also they're going to be sat at home doing nothing. So when things open, people are going to want to go out all the time. How can we make them look better? What's missing in Dubai? And my best friend, she won't mind me saying this. So she has beautiful hair, but it's very thin and long. And she always wears these one-time clip-in extensions in and out. And but I'm like, where'd you get them from? And because we were trying to think of what we could do, right? Because we wanted to do something, but we wanted to have it. There had to be like this need, but we had no one to ask because we're just at home, right? And she's like, I get them from the UK. I'm like, why? She's like, well, they don't sell them here. I'm like, oh, are you sure? Yeah, we Googled it. We're looking. They don't sell them here. I'm like, right. You can buy them here, but from a different country, which makes postage really expensive. So I'm like, well, why can't we do that? And she was really, because she's my best friend, but she works for a company. So she's never stepped into owning her own business at this point, right? So she's like, oh, I don't know. She definitely had those like nervous feet. She would for sure agree with me saying this today. Mm-hmm. And she's like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, right, I'm just going to order a load of samples. I found this amazing supplier. I'm going to order a load of samples. I will sell her. I'll get it right, and I'll sell her, and we'll do it together. Because we would have had fun. And in COVID, everyone was miserable, and I wanted to just have fun. It wasn't about money or about even creating an empire. It was just about let's just keep ourselves engaged, right? So anyway, I got all these samples, and I remember I laid them all out on my sofa. Was it my sofa or her sofa? I think it was her sofa. Laid them out. And I'm like, touch them, put them in, and she looked at them and she touched them, and they were better than the ones that she was ordering. And she was like, I'm in. And that was it. Like, so we started this company, and what was the question?
More about the advice, the recent advice that you received.
Okay, right. So anyway, so in COVID, amazing, right? Everything, it was amazing. We did so well. And then events started again, and we both got busy, and then our normal jobs like kind of took over. So Locks kind of chilled out a little bit. It took the back seat 100%. And then when I'm with him, I'm like, I don't know what to do, because I can see that we're sitting on something really special, but it needs time and attention, and it needs investment, and it needs, we need to meet constantly, her and I, which we were doing in COVID because we had time. And then I'm like looking at my upcoming season, and I'm like, I have to prioritize these clients, because ultimately, it's set in stone. There's a lot to do to plan an event. And I'm like, where am I going to find the time? And I sat with him, and he went through like the website, the numbers, the percentage that we would spend on advertising. And he worked out, and he did it all in his head. And he was like, right, you need to spend this, and this. This is what you're doing wrong. This is what the website needs to do. And I'm like, what? How do you know all that? But it's because he's had his hands in sort of many pots, and he's had a lot of experience. He's been in Dubai for a really long time. And he really made me see things how I don't want to tell you all my secrets. That's why I'm not answering the question.
I know. Tell me exactly all the secrets.
I don't want to. No, so he basically, like, he was working out, for example, what our profit margins were, right? That's where he started. He was like, I want to understand what your profit margins. Can you afford to do this wholesale? Can you afford to can you afford a shop? If you were to create a shop, can you afford the overheads of the shop? And he was looking at it from a completely different perspective to what Nikki and I had ever looked at it, ever. And it really made me realize that we were really blessed when it came to finding the right project and the product and getting it at an affordable price for us. But then the branding, we really focused on a lot in COVID. So the branding was really, really strong. We created a really good branding. It's just that all our problem is just getting in front of the clients. So he was like saying, you can actually afford to spend X amount on this, because then this could give you a return. The average return is this. He goes into the website and he sees if on particular days we've had more traffic on the website than before, and then he's like, right, why did you have more traffic on this day? Go to Instagram. Oh, we did this certain post, which was because of X, Y, and Z. So he's just like, he sees things that I don't see. Yeah. His strengths are not my strengths.
Yeah. So as long as they're into things that you're not, like, for example, Alina and I balance each other out. I'm the numbers guy, but she's the actual creative person. She's the 0 to 1 person where she gets started with something immediately. Idea to execution is super fast for her. I'm very slow going from 0 to 1, but she gets stuck at 1 to N. So it's easy to get started, but not easy to scale. And then I've got that too. And then I've got the 1 to N part nailed down because I've been a corporate employee for 10 plus years.
Right.
That's what they paid me to do. To have something that's already an existing business and take it to the next level. And we do keep trying to find these kind of people that fill in the gaps for us in different areas, not as in searching for them, they just appear in your life. And that's the part about Dubai that I would agree with you. They just, if you put those intentions out, and it's so funny that happens sometimes that my mind will be circulating with a certain challenge or a problem, and the person just appears with, somewhat of a solution or a thought that I'm like,
wow,
who's listening?
Yeah.
Like someone out there is looking out for me. I want to talk about partners next. So you're in a kind of business and similar to ours that we end up engaging, people from outside our companies to help facilitate, like, for the event and for our campaigns. What do you find works for you in terms of keeping these long-term relationships? How do you suss them out? How do you work on them? When you found good ones, how do you make sure that you'll always have their time and their effort, and just that entire relationship over the last 10 years of running events? What's changed from year one to year now in how you manage your relationship with your partners?
I mean, first of all, having the right partners is the most important thing in my industry.
Is it make or break?
It's a make or break, because ultimately, the client is dealing with you, but on the day, you are placing a huge amount of responsibility in everybody that's part of it. And in events, and especially in weddings, that is so many people, from anything from hair and makeup to photo and video. What if the photos are rubbish, right? And you've recommended them. What are the flowers, the production, what if something falls down? There's so many things. Then you've got like photo booths, and you've got like all these things. Food, yeah, exactly. Food, venue, like there's probably in a wedding, maybe 20 elements, 20 vendors, 20 things that you're expecting to rely on somebody else. And if you don't have the right partners, one of those things can be the negative to the client, 1 out of 20, right? So you have to make sure that you, I'll tell you, so last night, it was really funny. It wasn't funny. The service was a little bit slow. I won't say where we were, but the service was a little bit slow. And I was like, literally, so my team, I watched them put the food out, and then they didn't follow with wine, right? So I'm literally like, I watched, and I'll give them 2 minutes, still didn't come. So I'm like, say to my team, go and get them to pour wine on the table. And it's so funny because the client doesn't see that, right? And don't get me wrong, the venue was amazing, the food was amazing, but there was a lot going on. Let's just say that. So it's also my job to make sure that we maximize the vendor that's there, right? So the vendor's already a great vendor. It's a great hotel. They have great food, but sometimes maybe the staff just might need a little reminder. Can you go and do that? So it's kind of like you working together. They saw how I heightened the experience of the guests by encouraging their staff. Mm-hmm. And then that was mentioned in the speech. So the speech was like, literally, the best man, I couldn't believe it. He was like, I've got to tell you, I've had my wine glass in my hand tonight and it's never been empty. But he didn't know that was because I was like, make sure. But then the venue appreciate it, because it's not like we're pushing them. If you do it in the right way, they then will, they get themselves into the routine for the expectation of what mine is and what the client is. Yeah. And everybody's happy at the end. So I think it's just, in answer to your question, it's just about obviously finding the right partners, but then keeping them for sure is really about how you treat them. Yeah. Making sure that you're organized on their behalf, because they're turning up on a day they don't know anything about the day.
In terms of finding them, right? It's a lot of the time you don't fully know until they show up on the day and do the work that they say. Because everyone has nice sales pitches and nice brochures and websites, and everyone's great on discovery calls and stuff like that. Even if they've come through a good referral, you still have to kind of find out if they would work well with you. Just because they worked well with this other person doesn't mean they work with you. Have you found a way to pick out red flags, for example? Or do you kind of, if you're trying out a new vendor, are you extra on the edge on the day of, or are you trying to bring out red flags before it as well? Like, what's your interview process like for a new vendor to reduce the risk for you? Because there's so much risk in
there's
the
a
event,
lot of
right?
risk.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, the lovely thing about my industry is that we are really a fraternity, right? So we all, even though we're all competing against each other, which we kind of are, but we're kind of not, because we've all got our own little niches. We're all there to help each other. And that's one of the industries I think that's very rare, where you can go to a competitor and be like, can you help me with this? And they're like, sure, what do you need?
There's a word for that. Co-opetition. It's competition and cooperation.
I love that. I've never heard that before. I love it. So I nearly always will work on a recommendation basis. Okay. If, for example, I mean, I get so many sales emails, so many sales calls. We want to work with you. And sometimes I'll get a call or an email just at the right time where I'm looking for that. And I'm like, okay, I'm looking for that. You've kind of just walked into my life. So then 100% I would meet them. If it's a service where they're performing, for example, I'd need to see like plenty of videos. Like last night, the DJ that I worked with, never worked with him before, came on a really strong recommendation from a singer that I work with who I trust explicitly. And then, saw a couple of things, but that was enough. If it was another DJ where didn't have the recommendation, I'd be wanting to see reels of footage to see. And they don't really capture that. So it's actually really hard to get proof that they're going to be able to keep guests on the dance floor as well. So it is tough. But I would say that because it's nearly always on a recommendation, it makes me feel way more comfortable. And I have certain planners that I go to that I trust explicitly as well. And they're rocking it in their niche of events. And I just trust them. Yeah. And I think that is having trust and having the right people to go and ask is really important.
Absolutely. We get tons of people reaching out to us to partner in all these, again, co-opetition kind of situation. They are also an agency, but they do some other thing better than the others.
Yep.
And they don't want to do XYZ. They want us to do it. And it's so hard for us we've been burned a bunch of times, right?
Yeah.
We've tried them out. We've tried to do tests in the past as well, like a mock day. Which is very expensive for you to do, I'm guessing, doing a mock event day.
Yeah. We've done it. We've done like mock setups, but not like a mock day, like the full.
But it's way more expensive to put that together than it is a digital exercise that we can do. But maybe we need to like put out feelers towards more recommendations. We haven't really, since we've been here, we've been so focused on our own kind of business that we haven't joined the fraternity of local agency owners, and I'm sure there are tons of them. We have been a part of one international one, so we're on a Discord group, and we all just kind of chat in there, and a lot of them are moving to Dubai. And that's actually, you're right, and that's one of the best recommendations come from. It's if there is a trust network, a network that you trust already, and anything they recommend was going to be good. They would never put their weakest foot forward.
Yeah.
Okay, talking about partners to clients now. We'll do it in a nice way. Do you end up qualifying clients, or do you take everything that comes your way? And how do you work that process of qualifying? Like, okay, this is something I don't want to work on. Doesn't seem like the right fit for XYZ reason. I mean, you don't have to get into the reasons, but are you finding yourself better at saying no than
definitely.
you were when you first started?
Yeah, 100%. It's funny, I was talking about this with another planner the other day, and we were laughing because we were like, a client will reach out to us and we'll sit with them and we'll go through. And he was like, it's so funny because they think they're interviewing us, but we're interviewing them too, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you know, and we're getting, and definitely it's something that I learned my lesson. It's another story, but yeah, I'm definitely more picky about who I would work with 100%, because the thing is like we can plan a wedding for a year, 2 years, right? I mean, it's not as popular as that in the Middle East. In the Middle East, our turnaround time's about 4 to 5 months for a full wedding production. But yeah, you still, even in that time, even if it was 4 months, you still spend a lot of time back and forth. You know, like I've got a life as well, and I want to, you know, avoid as much stress in my life as possible. And you have to make sure that you have that vibe to work together, that you're going to get on, you're going to be able to reach their expectations, hopefully exceed them. And, you know, yeah, 100%. So it is something that I definitely do. And I actually, when I sit down with clients, especially social clients, I'll say to them, you need to go and meet at least 3 wedding planners as well as me, or event planners if it's not a wedding. And you just have to see how you feel with them, because if there's a vibe there, you'll know.
Yeah.
And I say it to everyone. And, you know, I mean, I like to think that my conversion rate is quite high, but if it doesn't convert, it's because it's not meant to be. And sometimes I'll even sit with the client and say, actually, I know someone that's a better fit for you than me.
This is good confirmation, because we always thought we were a bit off our game, because we started behaving like this very early into our business, within the first 6 months, being very picky. And we were advised by our close friends who've been running businesses, but family businesses, generational businesses, and they had the mindset of take everything you can get. And maybe that's also another reason we didn't make too much of an effort with the local fraternity of agencies, marketing agencies, because we heard messages like that through them. And every time we met them, it's like, oh, you know, I'm working at dirt cheap rates, but I just wanted to work on this client. So, oh, the client doesn't respect me, he calls me. I'm like, but why do you have to put up with it? Oh, because he's paying. How much is he paying? He's paying peanuts. Okay, so why are you doing?
So why? Exactly.
So it's a lose-lose situation. Yeah. And Alina and I thought about why we got into business, the whole why of getting into business. One was to be around people that we like being around, because we're going to get them good results only if we can also be friends with them. It's not a hard checkbox that I have to be your friend, but like we have to jam. We have to, as you said, vibe with each other pretty well. And every now and then we get into this phase where we get a ton of leads and our conversion rate is crap. It's because we're rejecting them. We have a whole discovery call. We go back, and this discovery call is phrased like this. We're going to use this call today to figure out if we are a good fit for each other, not if, you know, if I can do everything you ask me to do.
Definitely.
Very different, right? And then I'm going to come back in our next meeting, which we'll book for a week from now, to discuss if we can help you. Versus our initial one, who used to be like, I'm here to learn everything about you and how I can put together a proposal for you, and you're going to love me, and we're going to sign this stuff. And now it's just a bit more at the expense of making short-term money.
Yep.
So it's nice to get that confirmation that, you know what, if you take that long-term route and you've been in this for quite a while and that's working for you, so I'm going to copy that. I'm going to double down on that. I'm going to double down on being picky. Next, I want to talk to you about, and this is kind of interrelated with sales, and we'll get to sales too, but pricing. So a lot of the work that you do, I'm not talking margins that you can calculate based on time and materials, etc. The intellectual value of what you do, because at the end of the day, you're delivering a service, you're orchestrating something, right? How has your thinking about pricing changed over the years? What's your base philosophical motive of what you charge? When you put out a number, where does it come from? What is it based on? How have you maneuvered with it over the years? What have you experimented and tried? And how do you land on pricing that you give to your clients without mentioning the price? Like, how do you land on that number for a certain client?
I mean, look, like one thing that I realized, I mean, this is going back really to when I was in Portugal planning. It doesn't matter if you are planning a very, very luxurious wedding or you're planning a budget wedding. The amount of work and effort that goes in is exactly the same. In fact, sometimes it can be more stressful doing a budget wedding because you're constantly having to negotiate. Whereas if you're fair in the market, and I think that even though we're in the luxury sector, I would definitely say that we're very fair with our pricing. The right client sees the value for money and they don't need to negotiate it. they understand what they're getting for their money. They understand that if they call me at 1 a.m., I am going to pick the phone up. They understand that because that is what I do. And that's why I don't take on hundreds of clients, because if I did have 100 people calling me at 1 a.m., I'm pretty sure I'd get a burnout, right? So, they understand that when they sign, I am there for them. And there's a price tag, ultimately. The service that you're giving them, on the day, it's about giving them a lot of reassurance in the beginning, because obviously we get a lot of recommendations, honestly. And that's probably the majority of where our business comes from. So they already feel comfortable. But then when I sit with them, when they sit with me, they really understand from what happens in those calls or meeting in person is what service I'm going to give them, what that covers. And I actually explain to them, it's not just about planning your wedding and being there on the day. It's about making sure the food comes out hot, making sure that the staff do this, making sure this, everyone turns up on time. And then they actually realize, I never thought about all those things. I never thought about who puts the table numbers on the table, or who folds all the, folds the napkins in a different way because we want a different napkin fold. Like, it's not just about, right, okay, here's your wedding, there you go, or here's your event, here's your corporate. It's the fine details, the details that if you've got something that's budget, there's no time to do the nice little things. And I think that when you price yourself slightly above what would be the normal market range, and you put yourself in that different category, then you just get the right clients that come to you as well. And if a client comes to me and they say, well, that service charge is expensive, I'm like, okay, but it's expensive because I give you, it's not expensive, but it's this cost because I'm covering this, and this. From this point on, all your stresses are off your shoulder. Mm-hmm. There's no price tag to that. And if they're the right client, then they'll understand that. If they're not, then there's someone else that's for them, for sure.
Yeah, I love that, because I asked you about pricing and you mentioned a lot about what you're willing to do and what the client gets. Mm-hmm. And because it's not even about the number, it's how the client ends up feeling at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And if you want to be premium, if I'm understanding that, if you want to be
mm-hmm.
premium, for the people that can afford premium, money is not an issue to begin with.
For sure.
Right. And what their concerns are much, 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 much more. So they're mm-hmm. more interested in the craft of what you do. Mm-hmm. And they're more interested in the experience at what you do. So price becomes irrelevant the further up you take it sometimes, mm-hmm. or mm-hmm. what I've noticed in these kind of service-based mm-hmm. businesses. And that point about when you already are premium compared to general market, you don't attract everyone. Mm-hmm. Your lead flow drops, mm-hmm. let's say, but the quality mm-hmm. kind of goes up, right?
Definitely.
So when it comes to recurring business, so do you see a lot of that in your industry? Hopefully people are not having same person having 6 weddings a day, but is there a trend? Do you end up nurturing the customer to get more business out of them for other things, or is it a once done situation, like one and done situation with your clients currently? For
corporates, there's a huge amount of second, third, fourth, fifth. I mean, mm-hmm. I work with one agency. We've been working together for the last 5 years, mm-hmm. and I do a lot of events for them. So for corporates, 100% to nurture them, to look after them. How I work with them is very differently to how I'd work with a social client. With a social client, they understand that if they come, for example, and they want a wedding and they want to have a proposal or whatever, that takes time to create the design, create whatever. If I work with this one, I've got one particular agency I work with a lot, and they're like, I need this tomorrow. If that was a wedding client, I'd be like, absolutely not. Yeah. But for them, 100%, I have to make it work. Yeah. Because, it's something I have to concept. And the reason why they always come back to me is because I nearly always never say no, which is, it's not always a great thing to say that, but for sure, it's the reason why I've worked with them for so long.
Yeah. In terms of, like, even pricing, let's go back to pricing. Do these guys get special treatment? Do they get bundle packages when you're working with a corporate, or can it hold your ground? And the reason I'm asking is that we do monthly recurring retainers, mm-hmm. right? So we charge a fixed amount every month, fees for what we kind of do. And we kind of get stuck because that price was decided by a 2-year-old me. That 2-year-old, 2 years later, is more knowledgeable, more experienced, more everything. And we find it almost impossible to raise our prices, which my gut is telling me that I need to be able to raise my prices
100%.
or move forward. So what ends up happening is the only opportunity that we get is when our clients pause the retainer or cancel for a short term to come back at a later time. The message is simple that, when you do come back, it'll be our new rates because we've been grandfathering you for a long time. And again, we've only been in business for 2.5, 3 years now, so not too long. But is there potential in your business to kind of charge your current worth? You started a relationship 5 years ago with an agency or a client, and you just feel like you have access to many more tools, many more partners, much higher quality events that you can produce. Are you able to kind of go above what you've been usually charging the clients, or is that harder?
You know what? I think that like how we work is that it's just market price based on the day or the time of the event planning, and they understand that. So this particular agency, they then have a client. So they're a DMC, so they have a client that comes to them. That client says they're bringing 600 people to Dubai, and then the client then has to then create the events, get the hotels, arrange the transportation, So I'm just literally brought on just to do the decor. That's it, which is actually fabulous because I can go and do the decor and then I can leave when all the guests arrive, which I can't do if it's social. So yes, because of that, they do get, I wouldn't say special rates, but they don't. So if it's a social client or a wedding, there's a fixed fee based on number of guests, based on how long it is until the wedding day, based on like lots of different things. And every time that changes, because if I'm planning a wedding in 3 months or I'm planning a wedding over a year and a half, I'm going to do more work over the year and a half than I am in 3 months, right? Because they'll come back, they'll make changes. If there's 50 guests or if there's 600 guests, again, I need more people on site, and there's a lot more things that needs to happen. So for sure, like we have a fixed rate for our social clients that they have to pay just to hire us. If it's a corporate and it's like, in 2 weeks I've got this event and I need tables, chairs, centerpieces, I'm like, okay, cool. And I just charge them for what they want. They don't pay the coordination fee, the planning fee, because ultimately I'm not doing any of that. I'm just answering their question and giving them the solution to what they want. So it's very different. Corporates and socials are planned differently in terms of how they pay.
It's very modular in that sense.
Correct. Yeah.
I like the way you think. I like how you can separate out different scenarios of how and what and how much effort goes into from my side, because that's at the end of the day, that's what most pricing needs to be. It's like how much effort am I putting in? You know that story about the plumber that walks in and smacks one nail with a hammer and charges $100, and the guy's like, you just struck the hammer once.
I've not heard this, no.
He's like, no, it took me 10 years to figure out where to strike the hammer once to fix all your problems.
Wow.
And that's why I'm charging you $100.
Right.
Technically, he walked in. It looks like nothing, right?
Right.
Especially the more you do it, it just looks like a breeze.
Yeah.
But it took you all that time to learn how to do that and make it look easy.
And do
as
it
well.
in one go. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big qualifier for us in terms of clients when they're like, it's when they say to them like, oh, it's nothing. It's just a campaign. It's like, okay. Bye.
This isn't gonna work.
Bye. Like, I need you to appreciate how hard this is, and when we find clients like that, we hold on to them. Just never let them go. Just keep them as much as we can.
Exactly.
Talking about sales for a second, because we both have backgrounds in sales. I've been out of touch with like the outwardly hustling. We've been lucky, very lucky, that I haven't in the last 2.5 years needed to do much cold outreach. Just the universe has been giving us leads and high conversion rate, and they're all coming through recommendations and friends and family and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But now it's a little different. Those things are drying up. So I'm like, oh God, I gotta get back on my phones. I gotta go out. And I'm so rusty. That's why I love the business. I'm like, okay, wait, I'm finally in a business that's selling itself.
Amazing.
Like our brand is working.
Yeah.
Like the reputation that we built in the market is great. Every time someone goes to a networking event, someone asks for an advertising agency, our name comes up. There's a discovery call booked in my calendar automatically. We go to a contract within a week. And that's been happening for 2.5 years. And like lately it's been slowing down. And we can probably survive with that too, but we can't fully excel and scale and grow on that as well. So I wanted to get back into my mojo of doing outreach, but right now just looking for inspiration. Do you have a good mix of inbound leads, outbound? Like you doing the outreach, or is it mostly inbound right now for you?
Mostly inbound. In fact, we're in a really similar situation.
Yeah.
But and I'm getting to the point now where I'm like, where do I go?
Yeah.
Right. Like I've got to the point where Couture Events is, I would like to think we've got a very good reputation in the market. People know who we are. I don't have to go and find anything, which is great, but it's also a bit boring. You know, dare I say that? Enough, like, you know, and I'm like, how do I get this to be bigger now? Like if I looked at myself 5 years ago now, I'd be like, oh my God, look, I've made it. But then you get to that point and you're like, okay, well, what do I do now? And I'm in the process of looking at two options for the company. So one would be that we just grow the team and we kind of really, really smash more of the Middle East. Mm-hmm. But my other option is, which I think is the one I'm going to go for, is I'm going to open an office back in Portugal. And then that will cover all the European destinations.
Full circle.
Yeah, because, you know, I mean, I must be crazy because I enjoy my time off in the summer, but I've just got to the point where I'm like, I feel like I could, with the knowledge that I've got, I feel like I could go and help someone else get fully involved in Couture Events in Europe. They could be a part of the business, not just an employee. I want them to be invested, like, so that they're actually part of the company. And then they can then run that with the knowledge that I've got. So it's not putting a huge more amount of pressure on my shoulders, but it's giving someone the opportunity to basically have their own business, have access to all of our portfolio, all of our clients, everything. And I think that's where I'm going at the moment, is I'm going to build Europe and keep the Middle East as it is. Because I like being a small team. I've got planners who have 16, 17 staff. Yeah. And they are stressed. You know, like you've got this massive salary to cover. You know, like there's so many things that are outgoing. And events is one of those industries, like in COVID that you saw, you just never know, right? You could literally overnight, we would just shut down. And that scares me. And let's hope that it would never happen again, but it could happen again, right? So the reason why we survived and why it was so easy for me in COVID is because my team is incredibly small. And going back to having good partners, the people who I work with, and I work with them all the time, they're not on my books. I don't pay them. We work together on a project by project basis, which is a really sensible way to do business, I think, in my industry. And I've constantly having the argument with myself: do I bring on people and grow and grow and grow, or do I keep it like this and keep it at this small point and then have like another thing to do? So it is hard being a business in business, because you don't really know what to do that's right for you until you do it, and then you're like, oh yeah, that was the right decision. So I'm either going to make a call and it's going to be the right one, or it's going to be the wrong one. But I think that it's one of those risks that you take.
How long have you been thinking of this kind of expansion?
Probably about a year and a half, yeah. But now I'm like, and it's so funny because I'm like, right, I'll do it in the summer. You know, that's what I say. I'll do it in the summer, and then the summer comes, and I'm like, oh, I just need to rest. And I travel with my daughter, and but no, this is definitely something now that is going to happen next year. Yeah. I've said it now on here, so I have to.
You've said it on camera. I'm going to follow up with you. Let me set a calendar reminder for March, just before summer starts. Like, so,
okay, done.
Portugal.
How's it going?
Yeah. No, the email subject title will just be Portugal? Question mark.
I'll be like, done.
Well, Alina and I have jammed about this a lot, having a small company versus a big company. And when we look up in our industry, when we look at the agencies that are really large, so we're talking the Ogilvy's, and I can't even pronounce half their names, but they are, usually ivory tower, top floor, Media City building, hundreds of employees, cubicles, and we look up to that and we're like, don't want that.
Yeah.
We don't want that, because you're just making another factory of advertising, and then it becomes what you end up doing as a business owner would not be doing the creative work, which we love, and I think you love the creative aspect of your work too. You'd be managing.
Yep.
Managing people, managing numbers.
It's such a good point. Yeah.
You'd be in a corner office somewhere with Excel spreadsheets, talking to lawyers. And like it doesn't sound like a fun job.
Yeah.
As much as it does. But then the price we pay is that there's a certain limit to
where you go.
To where you go in terms of revenue. So we've been trying to really set up the compromises and live with that decision. And so far it's been fine, even though every once in a while, maybe it's social media, maybe it's other people that remind us, no, you need to hustle harder, you need to grow faster, grow. And, I keep bringing this up and jamming with this with every business owner I know. And they're surprised about how calm we are at staying or laying low and staying intentionally small.
Yeah.
And it comes at the expense, okay, I'm not buying a Tesla anytime soon, which is fine by me. And it comes down to your own values as well. But we do every once in a while have this like itch to really grow. We're having that itch right now too. So maybe if when I email you about Portugal, you can reply back and ask me, so like 100 people, when are you going to get those?
Look, I think it comes back to as well, you mentioned before, what is it that you want to achieve, right? Like
the why.
Why? What is the why? Because somebody's why could be, I want to make sure every weekend I'm at home with my kids.
Yeah.
Like that is a massive why.
Yeah.
Or I want to do this for my kid. Like for me, I want to do this for my child so that she can grow up and see that she's a woman and she can go out and do whatever she wants and make as much money as she wants, doing something that she truly, truly loves to do. That's my why.
Yeah.
But it's different to me wanting, but then that comes at the cost of sometimes on a weekend I'm not there and she's, and I'm not with her. So you constantly have to balance as well, and come down and that why is so important to really discover what it is, I think.
So I've thought and I've meditated on that why a bunch of times, and I brought it up on the podcast with other guests. So there's 3 reasons for me. And out of these 3, 2 need to be always checked off, or I'm not going to be in the business anymore. Number 1 is lifestyle. And lifestyle for me means being around people that I like, doing what I want, when I want. So if I want to take my 2 p.m. naps, I will take my 2 p.m. naps, because that's my lifestyle. So it's more energy related, like who am I surrounded with? So that's lifestyle. Number 2 is money. So it's not the first, it's not the last, but it's up there. And it needs to be able to give me a decent life. How I define decent is up to me. I don't have many money-based needs, or I work on containing them anyway. So that's number 2. And number 3 is it needs to be a creative expression. This business is a creative expression. It's my mark on the world, where I'm playing with something. So it's like an empty canvas and I'm drawing or painting on it. I don't know what it's going to be when I start painting it. So even when I'm making music. So when you start jamming to a tune, you don't know what the final song is going to be. You just start moving the strings around. And you're like,
go for it.
Okay. I'm jamming. Oh, that's a song. That's a tune right there. But it's more of a playing activity, right? So every time in our business goes through these phases where I'm always checking, are 2 of these boxes checked off at least. So currently right now, if you asked me a year ago, we definitely had lifestyle checked off and money checked off, but not much creativity. I was losing it until I started this podcast. And then I started this podcast, but now our client retention is a bit low. So I still got the lifestyle. I still have the play and the creativity going. So it keeps me above ground. The money is not there, but 2 out of these 3 things are there. And the money will come back if we just put our heads down and continue to do what we're doing. I feel like we're not doing anything wrong. We're constantly checking to see if we're doing anything wrong. Is this growth not happening because we're screwing up somewhere, or is it just a matter of timing, or is it just a phase that you need to like write it out? And we're constantly checking that. But I don't know if we'll ever get to that phase of 100 people under our belt. But if you get there before me, please please tell me to join you. And you're like, no,
I don't think it would be. I don't think
it was great.
No, I don't.
I love managing people.
No, I can't imagine there would ever be that, to be honest.
Can I talk about people for a second then? So you have full-time staff, right? Would you say? No.
It's me.
Just
imagine.
No one full-time ever.
No.
Is there a plan to hire a full-time person?
Yes. I probably need to have 2.
2?
Maybe 3. Yeah.
Have you figured out what kind of person, when I say kind of person, kind of title, job description that person needs to have?
Like, I definitely would like to have someone on the books. I have people that obviously I outsource things to, right? So, but I'd like to have a PA, someone that can just manage my life.
Yeah.
And then I feel like I would need like what I would call an event manager. So someone that kind of gets involved in the process, but really can just, if I'm like, right, I need this furniture, this is the budget, can you go and find it for me? Can you put it into a spreadsheet? Like all the things that takes me like time that I can do, but I could do it with my eyes closed. It's so hard letting go, because when you can do something with your eyes closed, you're like, but then I'm going to have to teach somebody to do that. It's just going to take me time.
And teach and then fix their errors.
Yeah.
And then, you know.
So it's so hard, because you're like, I could do it. So it is hard to let go. And then the other one would be a designer. I would get someone that's on board as a designer. But the thing is that going back to partners, I work with such good people. So for example, I have one designer or two designers, they run a company together. Absolutely incredible people, incredible humans. I feel like they work with me all the time, and they feel like I work with them all the time. So we kind of feel like we're a team. Nearly, well, I'd say 80% of the big inquiries that I get, they'll do with me, because I just trust them with my life, and I feel like they're there. So they're like, when it comes to a certain event, if it's about making an event space look pretty, making it look nice, I can do it myself, easy. If it's 600 people and they want a massive stage, they want things hanging from the ceiling, and they want like the production is on next level, I don't have that creativity. It's not that level. And they have that level. So one of them works in weddings, one of them works in corporate. So when I have a big corporate, one of them does it. When I have a big wedding, the other one does it. And they just see things how I don't see when it comes to big scale, over the top, like, which is Dubai, right? But then when it comes to like more of the European weddings, where it's a little bit more reined in, like I can do it all myself, because the expectation isn't they want to build a new world.
No Taj Mahal.
Yeah, they don't want to. Exactly. Yeah. So for me, even though in my head I'm like, I could do with a designer, because then I can just be like, right, this is what they want, go and do it. Make the mood board, make this, make that. Yeah. But then it loses the things that I love to do. Because when I see something come to life and it's come from my head, it's more special to me than seeing it come from someone else's head.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
But yet, I do know that there's a certain level that I can go to, and then when it comes to like big structures, I know that that's not my strength. I know it's not. And if it is on that level, what my strength is supporting the client on the day and being there for them and supporting them the week or the run up to the event. Whereas if you've got massive production and loads of stuff to build, then I can't give the client what actually they've hired me for.
Yeah.
So I have to then have somebody, and that's when I would use them. But if it's much smaller, I can do it all by myself. Like yesterday, it was a much smaller wedding, 87 people, British couple, and there was no designer involved. It was just me.
Yeah, that's how I feel about this podcast right now too. There's a lot of things that I'm doing on my own because it's my baby project. It's in a very different phase, right? It's an inception, and it could become a business of its own at some point, a standalone kind of business. And there's things that I can just do faster, with less errors.
I know.
Because I have tried, like, for example, hiring partners, freelancers that you can find on Fiverr to help you out, and just explaining, or language barriers and stuff like that. And it's just, I'm just going to do it myself.
I'm just going to do it myself.
I'll be up later, you know. Like, I'll try to put on a really fun comedic movie and then do the boring task. I'd rather do that than hire someone to do it. And it's not even about being cheap. Like, obviously, a lot of people can do it cheaper for you. Like, if you bring people in-house, especially, you give them full-time jobs versus your partner rates. Over time, maybe you can, have more margin for yourself. Yeah. But then you also take on more headache and more motivation. Because when you're working with a partner, you don't have to motivate them to come in to work every day. That's taken care of. That's on them.
Totally.
But when you have your full-time employees, there's a lot more intangible things that you have to work on. Yeah. That we, we've learned over the years as well.
Yeah.
So we're trying to find the right balance between partners versus in-house and kind of testing. We're always experimenting.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's full-time, sometimes it's a partner. Sometimes we work with a partner for so long, we're like, you're coming on board, because the partner is good at what he does, struggling to find other business.
Right.
So if you're struggling to find another business, I can give you a fixed salary every month that covers you, your food and your rent and everything, and you get to work for me.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing that I've noticed, and we will be wrapping up soon, but I want to get this one in before my rapid fire round. Hot seat. Thinking big. I've realized over the last hour and a half, an hour 40 minutes that we've been talking, there's something I want to find out how and where it comes from. But you are a big thinker. Like, it seems like the scale of your ideas are still, like, I think what you've done is still limited compared to what you can do. But the initial part is would you identify yourself as a big thinker? How does that happen? Where does that come from? And how do you keep practicing it if you do practice it?
Do you know what? By big thinker, first of all, to clarify, you mean like, I feel like
you feel like things are more within your reach. So you're not limited by the size of the things you want to accomplish, do, hustle about. It all feels grabbable. It's all within distance for you. To me or someone else, it'd be like, that's a big plan. Are you sure? Are you sure you want to do that?
Do you know what, right? It's so funny. I remember being really young and saying to my mum, do you know what? One day I'm just going to be a millionaire. And she would go to me, all right. And I'm like, no. And I just believed it. I can't. And you know what? It's so funny because when I didn't live in Dubai and I would come out with stuff like that, I'd always feel people would judge me. Now I'm not afraid to say that at all, because all the people that are in my life are like, and you will. And it is going to be like that. And, you know, and I just think surrounding yourself with the right people, you know, because sometimes you're like, you question yourself, whatever. But I feel like I have a lot of inner strength, honestly. I feel like I was born with it. I feel like I just know I'm destined for amazing things, and I know that they're coming. It's so strange. I can't describe it. It's like having this inner belief that people have to really force themselves. I don't have to do that. Like, I'm like, you are gonna, you know, I know where I'm going. I know where the end goal is. It's just about breaking those things down to make it happen and just to get there. And then surround yourself with people who are your biggest cheerleaders, that are encouraging you constantly to make it. They're the two things. Just
it's like a double push. There's one coming internally, and then it's being like pushed off. It's like double win. No, I'm one of those that has to constantly work on it. So I realized this around the time that I started doing sales. I got hit with this massive anxiety and imposter syndrome, which was kind of true because I was young and I was the first person they hired at my age. Everyone was more experienced to do that kind of sales that they want me to do, the Wolf of Wall Street kind of stuff. And since then, I went into this kind of phase of self-help. Got a lot of books, read about them, like, it's not coming naturally to me. No one told me, because, well, it's also the upbringing, right? Like, my parents, great intentions, but they're not, you know, they never ever pushed me hard until today, till today as well. Like, both Alina's parents and my parents, when we work too hard, they always tell us to relax. Right. They never ask, you know, why are you working so hard? And I tell them, like, because we have dreams and visions that want to come true. So it's very important how you surround yourself. We grew up like, hey, it's 2:00, take a nap. Or like, hey, you haven't eaten anything for 3 hours. Can you eat something? I'm going to bake something for you. That's my mom. She always wants to feed me. She wants to feed me like every 3 hours. I'm like, but no, that's taking away my energy to actually do the thing. But it's like, don't work too hard. It's fine. You know, we'll all get by. Everything will be fine. But I'm like, the things that I do want to achieve require some sacrifice. But the focus has been on myself so much. Relationships, health, etc. Like, I'll still find time to play football 3 times a week. Most business owners I know will not do that. Just trying to find that balance of like thinking and getting the supporters. We have the supporters now, I feel. And again, thank you, Dubai, for that, for bringing to mind that, you know, it's not stupid to have, let's say, money goals. we were kind of, it was demonized where we grew up to. Like,
I agree.
Don't you worship money?
Yeah.
Don't you wish for it? Don't you pray for it? Don't you do anything out of the ordinary for it?
Yeah.
It's like, but why not? So I look at money as like just a way to keep score of, you know, my own value. Not because there's 5,000 things I want to buy or I want to live on the palm, etc. That's like secondary.
Yep.
But it's a personal scorecard for me. It's like, how well do I think I'm doing? I've been put in here on this earth 60 to 80 years. Am I just going to cruise by? That doesn't happen naturally either. There's a lot of people can just cruise by.
Yep.
But at the same time, the massive big thinking is also not there. So kind of somewhere in the middle. So I'll call you once in a while. give me a little push.
Please do.
Give me a little push. Aren't you a millionaire yet? Maybe that should be my ringtone. Maybe that should be my alarm in the morning.
There you go.
Yeah, I saw this funny alarm that you can set to make yourself go to the gym in the morning. It's just a guy yelling at you.
Go to the gym.
Go to the gym. Get your ass to the gym. Get up. Are you still in your blanket?
You know, I set my my alarm once too. I've changed it back now, but it was I Was Here by Beyonce. Have you heard the song?
No.
Oh, please listen to it.
Yeah.
So it's basically like, so for me, mine is when I get on my deathbed, right? And I've lost grandparents and I've sat with them on their deathbed, you know, and you read those moments where they say, just enjoy your life. And for me, mine is, I want to be happy. Ultimately, like I want to have inner peace. And I lived with not having inner peace for quite a few years. I want to wake up and love what I do, and I want to make a difference. And I feel like doing what I'm doing is making a difference in people's lives, because it's one of the biggest moments of their life, getting married, even though it's corporate events as well, which I also love. But if we're talking about marriage, I'm a big part in one of the biggest moments of their life. I'm making a massive difference to their life. And hopefully they would remember me for the rest of their lives, because I've done my job right and I've played that part. And that's the biggest motivator for me. And I think that what comes with that, if I do it right, is achieving and is making more money. But money actually isn't my motivator at all. Yeah. It's not.
Yeah. It's secondary compared to the other things. I'm just wishing you get more and more toasts at weddings. The wedding I was telling you about in Bali, the wedding planner actually got a 2-minute speech from the bride and the groom.
I had that yesterday, and I said to my partner, I got back and I was like, I had a
speech.
2-minute mention. Like he spoke for about a minute about his bride, and then he spoke for 2 minutes about me. I couldn't believe it. And then he made the whole room applause me. I couldn't believe it. I'm there sweating. Like I look a mess. My hair's tied up.
Yeah.
And but it was, well,
that's what you do it for, right? Like those moments, just like those few moments, like this.
So sweet.
She was with us because we were all housed in the same villa in a week in Bali. So she was kind of like always there. So we all got to know her too. So when that toast came around for her, we all raised our glasses and we're all
so nice.
She melted. Completely liquid by the end.
Yeah, because you're not used to having that much of a shout. I mean, they'll always thank the planner. I think if you've done the right job, in the speech they'll always thank you. But to have such a long shout out is nice.
Yeah, well, I'm wishing for more and more of that for you. I do have a rapid fire round.
Oh,
are you up for it?
Okay, no.
I'll start with something easy.
Okay,
ice cream or gelato?
Is it not the same?
No.
Is it not? Is it not?
No. Ice cream then. I'm picking for you. I love that answer. No one's ever said that.
Oh, I'm going to get red now. Right, okay. I won't mess up anymore.
Okay, no.
I'll just give you an answer. I'm not going to respond.
This one's really easy. And by easy, I mean really hard. Exciting flexibility that leads to volatile results, or boring consistency that leads to sure results?
Oh, no, definitely the first one. 100%. Yeah.
All right. I expect nothing less. Spa day or shopping?
Spa day.
Yeah. Okay. If you weren't living in Dubai or Portugal, where would you be?
Such a hard question. I would probably say, I'm going to say Marbella.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've not been. I will go now. I'm basically making a travel list after I ask every one of my guests this question. So, favorite Netflix show? Well, TV show of all time, but not released in 2022.
This is so embarrassing.
Oh God. Am I ready for this?
No, because it just sounds so bad. Okay, how to get away with murder.
Oh God. Okay.
I can't even
No judgment.
explain it. I just
No.
think the actors are amazing and the plot is just hilarious. It's just brilliant.
I'm gonna be very careful.
Yeah, I would.
I'm not gonna email you about Portugal. You mentioned the success principles already, but is there another book you think every business owner should read?
To be honest, I'm obsessed with the guy who wrote that, Jack Canfield, and he also wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Oh, that's the guy.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the guy. Have you know Chick, obviously, you know,
yeah.
And there's just a couple of standout things that I've read through the books or through Chicken Soup for the Soul, and they have resonated with me forever and ever and ever.
Awesome. I've already asked a big company or small company one. Last question, rapid fire. If you were to stop working in the events industry,
Okay.
what would you be doing instead?
Oh, but I love what I do.
If I had a gun to your head and you could never work in the events industry again.
I would answer and say, I've made so much money doing what I do, I'm going to retire and live on the beach.
You'd rather die than give up events.
I would rather die. No, do you know what? For sure it would be something, I don't know what it would be, but it would be something, doing something similar where I'm meeting clients, I'm with clients, I'm doing something for them to make their lives better.
Okay.
I don't know what that is, but that's what it would be.
So events then.
So basically events.
I've had so much fun in this conversation. I love your ability to tell stories, by the way. That makes
I always get
show.
sidetracked though. I got sidetracked twice.
I brought you
I'm like,
back.
what was the question?
Told you I'm always listening. But no, apart from the stories too, there's so much wisdom and things I will copy very politely. I think Alina would really enjoy this episode as well, and that's who we do it for. We do it for ourselves more than anything else. Thank you so much for this. I wanted to ask you, if you had a billboard on Sheikh Zayed Road and you wanted to get a message out to the world, non-commercial, don't say, sign up my events company. What would you want to say?
Is it for my company?
No, it can't be commercial.
Oh, it
Just
can't
a
be
message.
commercial.
Yeah.
I would say, this is really cheesy.
I love the cheesy ones.
I would say, reach for the moon, even if you miss your land in the stars. It's cheesy, but it's so true.
Isn't it the other way around? Don't you reach for the stars and land on the moon?
Well,
I don't know how it is.
if you were being pedantic, for sure that would be true. But the saying goes, reach for the moon, even if you land in the stars.
I need to talk to whoever came up with this saying.
Who wrote that?
Yeah.
Let us know.
Smart people. I like that. Reach for the moon. This alludes to your big thinking thing.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. And does this involve taking more risks every now and then?
Yeah, I am a bit of a risk taker.
Yeah. Okay. And you're always glad that you took your risks.
Always, because if it doesn't work out, you learn something.
Yeah.
And I just think that if anybody's listening to this and they're setting up a business or they're in business and they want to take the next step or whatever, nothing comes easy ever. If it did, everybody would be doing it. If it was easy to have a business, everyone would have a business, because for sure, for me personally, it's more rewarding to have a business than to work for somebody. It's not the case for everybody else. But I just think, take the risk. And I have so many people say to me, I'd love to do what you do, because being a wedding planner, by the way, it's horrific sometimes. But to people, they see this really beautiful end result and they're like, oh my God, I'd love to do what you do. And I'm like, look, anybody could do what I do. Anyone could do it. You just, or they'd say, oh, I'd love to have a business. How did you do it? How did you do it? And I'm like, look, you go to work at 9 o'clock in the morning and you leave work at 5. You've all those hours in between where you're working, probably your ass off at some point, right? If you were to dedicate those hours and work on yourself or work on a project or something that you love or something that you're really passionate about, you will make money. You will make money. It doesn't matter what it is. If you love it, if you believe in it, and if you're passionate about it, you'll make money. Even if you're crap at sales, even if you're rubbish at certain things as a business owner, you have no idea how to run a business, you will learn those things. So that's what I always say. And I personally think it's much more rewarding if you doing something that you love for yourself, for your family, for the people who you love.
Here. I love that. I need a much larger billboard now than I planned for originally. But thank you so much. This is really fun.
Thank you for having me.
I hope we can do a round 2 at some point. I think
love that.
There's a lot of things I do have skipped over that we'll get into. Maybe the next time that we meet too. Maybe before we move to Portugal for the summer.
Okay.
Because that's happening, right?
100%.
But yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Love
Thank
this.
you for having me.
Yeah. Cheers.
Thank you.